Hi, hey, thanks for opting in, and I want to give you some of the greatest secrets that I've ever learned about paradigm shifting. And when I say paradigm smashing, I'm talking about getting rid of those cobwebs that really have you stuck in a rut. And this is going to be a lot easier than you think it is, and we're going to have a little bit of fun here for the next few minutes, okay? So hang on to your hats, because we're going to talk first about a guy by the name of Dr. Maxwell Maltz. Now, Maxwell Maltz was a plastic surgeon who did business in New York City in the 1950s and 60s. And after doing all this plastic surgery, he came to some incredible conclusions about the way paradigms really work. And he's actually the guy that's credited with the term self-image, or at least proliferating that as a concept out there as to how we envision ourselves. Okay? This was so effective that it actually struck one of my indirect mentors, a guy by the name of Dan Kennedy. He was so moved by this information that he actually went out and bought the rights to Dr. Maxwell Maltz's work, and he edited and updated the book, which today is called The New Psycho-Cybernetics. I highly suggest you get the audio book or the book. On this very website here, freethinkingtools.com, if you go down to the pinwheel, you can buy it right now on Amazon, and I'm telling you, that's the best advice I can give you right now. Take it. But let's talk about a couple of the things that he discovered so we can begin this journey of paradigm smashing, okay? And again, building good paradigms is what we want, but we have to smash the bad ones to begin with. So, what these guys discovered together, and primarily Maltz, was that he would have somebody come into the office with sort of a self-image issue. In other words, gee, doc, my nose isn't quite straight. So he'd put it over in the middle, and he'd look in the mirror, and all of a sudden he'd say, oh my gosh, I'm a completely different person. And that struck him. How could it be that he could just move a body part in a little bit of a different direction, make them physically maybe a little bit more conforming or a little bit better looking, and all of a sudden the whole person could change? Well, that really struck him that something was at work that was a little bit deeper, and he coined that the self-image. In other words, the picture that you have of yourself. And that's really where he focused. But they have a great analogy in the book that I want to talk to you about today. And that's really about goal setting. Okay? You all have this wonderful self-image in your head, but yet these negative paradigms keep getting in its way. So let's say that we create this lovely self-image, and here you are all happy, and you know, there's little Sally, and little Sally's all happy about what she could become. However, over time, somebody told little Sally that she couldn't be this, or she couldn't be that. So all of a sudden, Sally, or we could call it little Jimmy, we could have a guy or a gal, wouldn't matter. But they would have all these scars that came their way over time. And a lot of that in Maltz's world came from a really passive acceptance of the words and thoughts of other people, okay? And so here's the new self-image that's injured inside the mind. So there's the negative paradigm smashing that we have to go right after, okay? Well, I'm going to tell you that Maltz started to realize that there was a picture in somebody's head that even if physically he corrected the appearance, this still existed. So Sally could come in, she should get her nose fixed, and it would look all perfect like that, and she would look in the mirror, but she would still be seeing the scars. And they were more internal, and they were more self-image oriented. So he gave that a lot of thought, and what he started to do was teach his clients to understand what this was all about and how it came about. Now look, I'm not going to play psychologist, shrink. I'm not a psychoanalyst by trade. I'm just somebody that's made thousands of distinctions about how this can affect the performance of business people, and in my case, the real estate industry. I've had the benefit of coaching people for a long time, and I've had to deal very personally with their scars and how they get rid of them so they can be congruent with success. And I'm going to tell you it's as easy as going like this. Okay? It really is. Ultimately, wisdom, in my opinion, is simple. I know the academics out there will have my head for simplifying this and doing this without the safety net of a degree in any of this, okay? But I have a degree in hard knocks of helping people through this moment, and I want to show you how to do it too. What they talked about was a target, okay? So if this was the self-image that was congruent more with success and happiness, we could paint a picture of it. There's nothing stopping us from daydreaming about this wonderful self-image over here. And that becomes the target. regardless of where we stand here with our scars, the new self-image that we create in the mind becomes the target. Well, let's assume a guided missile, because we are no different from a guided missile. A guided missile, in order to get to its trajectory or its point of contact, needs to be given very specific instructions. The computer needs to be given longitude and latitude of how it gets to its target. Now, if you know anything about guided missiles, even though you give it the exact longitude and latitude, it never gets directly there, okay? Why? What happens? It takes off and the wind blows it off direction. The rain beats it down. So ultimately, the guided missile gets there by taking negative feedback. Could be very similar to constructive criticism, or if negative feedback from the world that says you're off target. See, but the difference with a guided missile, it doesn't have the ability to reason and think, it just calculates. So what it does is as it gets out here and it gets that negative feedback, it doesn't quit. It doesn't turn back. It doesn't hide under the couch, under a blanket for the day. It doesn't go to drugs and alcohol. It doesn't have the opportunity to do the things that we could choose to do when it gets negative feedback. It simply course corrects and keeps moving forward. So how do you get beyond this point here? And I don't have a lot of time today, so I'll cut to the chase. You need to have clarity as to what this really should look like. What is your target? I know you've heard it for year after year after year, that man is teleological. Aristotle talked about this a long time ago, that we are goal-seeking organisms. Brian Tracy, who I'm also a big fan of, talks about the clarity of that goal. You see, the problem is most of you don't know exactly what self-image you want to fulfill. You don't know very clearly what you look like at your best because you've never sat back and acted as if that already existed. You've never given that life in the brain and in the mind. The more clarity you give this, the quicker you can begin to focus on it. But the part that you'll have to deal with at all points, like anybody, is this negative feedback. And you have to realize at those points in time in life, when you get that negative feedback, it's just that. And all it's requiring is that you course correct and continue on. Don't think for 1 second that along this journey to your goal that you're not going to have to fight through this. Everybody does. And it's those that have the self-discipline to continue to move forward at these critical points, self-correct, that will always be moving towards your goal. So in summary, we'll leave you with this paradigm-smashing thought, okay? You need a clarity of goals, and you need to understand that the scars that have been inflicted upon you by life are something that is easily erasable if you simply identify them and understand that you're the one accepting their existence and their perpetuation. Create a new self-image in your head. Act as if it's already happening like athletes do prior to their event, and continue to move in that direction, taking the negative feedback, constructive criticism, or whatever else feels injuring, making sure you understand that it has nothing to do with you personally. It's just the feedback that's telling you you're off target. If you do this, if you feed what Dr. Maxwell Maltz calls your mechanism, your auto mechanism, success, okay? If you feed it success through this clarity of success, then that's what you'll get. But if you decide that any of these critical points you're going to quit, you're going to end up out here in the poppy fields with Dorothy, and that's not where we want you. So we look forward to helping you here at freethinkingtools.com. We're thrilled that you opted in. I hope you enjoy this video, and if you do, please give us a little rating and spread this around so we can bring more people to the fold and we can continue to learn this, because there's a lot more to go at freethinkingtools.com. See you real soon.